Beautiful. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Lisa Oates, talking herbs with the beautiful Dr. Sue Evans, and I'm loving that red on you today, matching nicely with your glasses.
My thanks, yeah.
Talk to us about St. John's wort.
Yes. Well, I can go on for a long time about St. John's wort. So first of all, let's look at its name, Hypericum perforatum. So Hypericum, I was always taught, was from Hypericum, over an apparition. That this is something that dispels ghosts, right?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Perforatum because the leaves are perforated. You know, you hold them up to the light and they've got little pinholes in them. St. John's wort, of course, being an old word for any healing herb, and St. John's because it was supposed to flower on St. John's Day in the Northern Hemisphere. Now, this is such an interesting plant. In Australia, of course, well, certainly in Victoria, it's a noxious weed, whereas in parts of the Northern Hemisphere, it needs to be chivied along. You know, it's not in that way. And it is one that, you know, back in the day when I first learned about Hypericum, it was one of those plants that I learned about it over when I was training in the UK. And it was kind of one of those ones that you knew that your lecturers were not all that convinced of. You know, yes, they taught you about it, but it, you know, certainly was nobody's favourite. And I came home, and when I came home back to Melbourne, I was using locally grown Hypericum, and I found that it was just so much stronger than anything that I had used in the UK. And next time I went to visit, I was talking to my colleagues and saying, look, you know, how do you find it? No, we don't use it much. And then I saw some in a health food shop. I saw some dried herb. It's like, oh, okay, this looks like it would be inert.
Yeah, okay.
So now, Hypericum perforatum. Culpeper says, herb of the sun in Leo. So, and Leo is the sign of the sun, and August, you know, that's the time of Leo, is the time of August. So this is a herb associated with the sun, associated with light. We also know that it causes, that when cattle graze on it, it causes photosensitivity.
Yes.
So there's an association with light. Its name, Hypericum, over an apparition. How do you get rid of apparitions? You put light on them.
Yeah, I have seen that photosensitivity in humans as well, where they've you know, been susceptible to sunburn and things like that. Particularly,
I think, with the oil, where people use the oil. So it's not surprising in that way that in Australia, where it's a land of great light, you know, and this is a herb that flowers generally in December, a time of great light, it's no wonder it's really, really strong, you know, in Australia. It's also, and so I have been at conferences when, you know, people who think that they know what they're talking about, not herbalists, I might say, look, there's no tradition of it being used in depression. It's like, well, maybe they didn't use the word depression, you know, but hey, light, you know, like what is depression but darkness?
Yes.
You know, and had, okay, so other things. Now, the other major action of St. John's wort, which has kind of gone out of fashion a bit since St. John's wort has been used so much for depression, and there's so much evidence behind that, is its use externally as a nerve, particularly for nerve pain. So, so externally for sciatica and things like that.
Yeah, I love it for that, yeah.
And so, but also think about, Lisa, think about its name, St. John's wort. Who was St. John? St. John the Baptist. What happened to John the Baptist? In the Bible, the story is that that Salome did a really good dance for Herod, and Herod said, you can have whatever you like. And so, or it might have been Salome's daughter, I can't remember. And it wasn't Salome's daughter. And she said, Salome's daughter said to her mum, what would you like? And she said, I'd like John the Baptist's head on a platter, right? And so John the Baptist was beheaded. Now, where'd all the cranial nerves go? You know, and so, I mean, I think that one of the things I love about stories is how you can relate some of the stories to some of the, I mean, sometimes you can and sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
Like some, and I also love that about the myths and the stories, because it's like when you haven't related the story to the action of the plant, it's like, well, is there something more to be found? You know, do we still not quite know what this is all about? But anyway, all those things. Hypericum perforatum grows fantastically, and unfortunately is a noxious weed. Recently, I told a friend of mine who works in herbal medicine in Germany that it was a noxious weed. I mean, he was just absolutely gobsmacked. What?
How lucky are we to have this as a noxious weed?
Yes, this fabulous plant. And of course, the other thing, you know, when you scrunch the flower up, the redness comes out, which again, traditionally that was supposed to be to do with John the Baptist's blood. Yeah. So there you go. They're my stories about Hypericum.
That is so interesting. Thank you so much, Sue.